Hi, everyone. I'm Emily.
And I'm Scar.
And welcome back to another episode of the Cottage Horse podcast.
It's cannibalism time. It's that time of year again.
Is this a season now?
Yeah.
Okay.
And if you're part of a YellowJackets soccer team, it is every season and every day.
Yes.
That's it.
I just know one of them heard Cannibal by Kesha driving around one day and just like swerved off the road a little bit.
Yeah. Do you think? Oh no, when did that song come out?
Somewhere in the 2010s.
Damn. Because I was gonna say, do you think that like someone put it on at Jeff and Shauna's wedding, but that's way too early.
Yeah.
On the dance floor. It's way too early. Damn.
What a shame.
Why did someone not play that at Callie, like in the school? Like that's funnier to me. When they're like bullying her.
I think because by the time we're at Callie, that song, while iconic, is like not
but
trendy
like it's
anymore.
perfect.
No, it is, but
I would be like setting her ringtone to that in class just to be a menace, you know.
Yeah. Get her one of those cards that you can record, and whenever it opens, it plays a song.
Exactly. These bullies were not on top of their game. I would have ruined her life.
Scar, were you a bully in school?
I wasn't actually. I was bullied. So therefore, I'm allowed to say this because I get one free pass of knowing what makes good bullying action.
Valid.
So it's okay. But yeah, it's season 3 chit chat.
Yes.
So if you haven't watched season 3, go away. You're not welcome here.
If you haven't watched, you're not missing much.
No, that is true. Like when we flash back to our episode where we kind of like spoke about the season, we were like both very excited, and I think we've come out the other side of it, along with probably the far majority of people, kind of underwhelmed, to say the least. Wondering where things are going. Things seem a little bit fragmented, which is such a shame when you have a show that had such strong 2 seasons, especially like such a strong opening. And again, the middle is always a little bit meh. We always find that in books we read. We always find that the middle is always very meh. In the trilogy, the second book is typically our least favorite. But it's hard when you don't have the rest of the puzzle pieces in place to know if it will go up or continue down this path.
I think my biggest problem is I agree. Like the middle is always more meh. And I think the issue that I really have is that I feel like we have lost the tone of the show and like the original like setup that we were given for the show feels very lost. I feel like it has become a different show than the premise we were originally given. So that's what I'm really struggling with.
Yeah, it definitely is. There's a loss of like there's a loss of narrative, and I don't mean like the plot. I just mean like in the through threads that are occurring with characters, especially for a show that was so heavy on like the characters. It now feels like it's lost that drive, and it's very much just like, here is A, B, C, D, E, F plot, and I'm like, no, like we care about the plot, but no one really cared about the plot. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
The plot, we know what's going on. Like we get it. We don't really care. I don't really care what they do. Like that's kind of the fun of it. Like I understand that they're bad people doing bad things in a survival situation. It's about how these people manifest and continue to go about their lives, and it feels like they're just kind of like there, and I'm like, hello.
And okay, I have always been a Shauna Shipman defender. Okay.
Amen.
And at the start of season 3, you know, the first couple episodes we're getting into it, people were really disliking Shauna. Understandably. I'm not saying she's a good person. She was a bad person doing bad things.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, this is such a complex character. She's going through so much grief, so much postpartum. Like there's so much complexity to her. And by the end of season 3, they have really just written her to be this cartoony villain.
Yeah.
And I feel like we lost all of the complexity that made her a good character. She's not a good person. Do not claim that. But you just made her, like, stupidly bad.
She's just very 2D.
Yes.
Like, I'm like, I don't actually understand her motivations anymore because I don't truly believe she has any. Whereas before, it's like, no, you understand why she's doing these things. Like, yes, it's awful, but that's kind of the point, right? Like, all these adult survivors are like, the way that their survival has manifested differently. Like, everyone's come out of it and taken away things differently, survived in different ways, continued to live in different ways. And that's the point. Like, there is no correct way to deal with it. And we see that, like, especially with the introduction of Melissa, you see like a very polar opposite. Well, to be fair, like, they're all quite hush hush about it, obviously, but you see someone who's very polar opposite in the fact that she's like, I'm removing myself completely from this narrative and pretending to, like, unalive and going to completely just live a completely different life, which is very valid and understandable, to be fair. Like, what a way to remove yourself from any, like, hushings and murmurs, which clearly there obviously was going to be a lot of. And even, like, in the letter that we finally get that she, like, writes, where it's like, I hope you can forgive yourself. Like, clearly there has been a passage of, like, forgiveness. Like, she's gone through a grieving process of her teen self and understanding that, like, what she did out there, whilst awful, is not necessarily her fault. And that's very complex to, like, grapple with because you've caused harm to people. But ultimately, in that situation, it was, like, the right thing in the grand scheme of things. And she's been able to forgive and move on. Whereas other characters have not done that. But, like, yeah, everyone else kind of just fell to the wayside. And I'm like, hello?
Well, and kind of back to my original point of, like, I feel like we've lost the tone, we've lost the premise. I was under the impression we were watching a show about a bunch of teenage girls going batshit crazy because of the situation they were in. And now at the end of season 3, it's like, oh, so it's just Shauna and Lottie being crazy. And, like, Lottie understandably is unmedicated. So while she doesn't get a pass for the things she's doing because she is doing genuinely harmful things, but, like, hers is understandable.
Yeah.
Shauna's just crazy for crazy's sake. Like, I feel like we finally saw Pit Girl. We finally saw that whole lead up. And I feel like the tone that you see in the pilot of that scene and the tone that you see in season 3 of that scene don't match. And I'm all for, like, oh, you thought you knew what was happening, but you didn't type writing. But it feels like an aha gotcha moment that just doesn't pay off in the right way.
Yeah, it feels the only, like, thing where it's like, I think, and it's such a double-edged sword as well, because I think it ended, like, very plainly, which honestly I kind of knew was going to happen because it makes the most sense. But, like, the whole, like, Van arc that we got, like, I knew she was going to die in a very underwhelming way because that's kind of the point, right? Like, she survived through so many horrific things that her death was always going to be very, like, meh, because it had to be. Like, you can't survive a fire and a wolf attack and all these things and then, like, still go out on a blaze of glory. It was always going to forever catch up to you, and, like, finally it did. But, like, the whole moment that she had where it's like the attempt at rigging the cards, like, that's the fire, like, that is and what potentially a lot of people are saying, like, that is what, you know, maybe triggered the cancer. Like, that idea that you're playing literally with like a bigger entity. But even so, like, that's now lost. Like, we don't have that anymore. I guess we have Tide struggling to grips with that, but honestly, what is Tide even doing? Like, girl, what are you doing? Girl, you have a whole wife and child and dog.
Yes.
Like, what is happening? Where are they? Are they okay? Are they live, love, loving? Because I don't feel like they are.
Like, the whole, like, making Shauna a cartoon villain. What do you mean Van's death is Shauna's fault? Like,
no,
indirectly, sure. But, like, at the end of the day, Shauna attempted to go alone the first time and then left them at the hospital the second time.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, well, it's because Shauna needs everyone to clean up her mess. She never asked for any help this time. She also tried to tell them that Melissa was unhinged. None of them listened. And now Melissa killed Van. And I'm like, okay, sure, you can say that Shauna indirectly played a part of that. But at the end of the day, Melissa killed Van, full stop.
Exactly. Well, that's the point. They like, and it's kind of feeding, like, that's the one thing that the show continues to like perpetuate and like kind of does well, where it's like, and it's the same thing, right? Where we always talk about like, yeah, we understand they aren't good people, but like, it's not a competition. Like you being like, oh, well, my person didn't do this. I'm like, they're all inherently bad people. Full stop. It's not about who is the best and who is the worst. Like we could be there all day. And it's the same here. It's like, they're all to blame. Like you can't be like, oh, well, so-and-so's actually to blame for like Harvey's death or blank or blank. I'm like, no, they all are. They all are fundamentally are part of a puzzle piece that has put into place. Like someone might have pulled the trigger, but it still is there. You're just running around in circles. That's exactly how they are in that moment. They're constantly blaming each other for things that it's just themselves. I'm like, it is them. It is them. And they're just being goofs.
And I feel like the writers are like trying to do too much almost. Like, because like we had that whole thing with the ice cream shop and the man with no eyes, and Van and Ty went there, and then nothing. Like nothing ever came of that. And I know we're not going to get all the answers because I know this show is going to span multiple seasons, but I feel like there are so many things that they like ramp up and then just like seem to drop, and maybe they'll come back around, but we're not getting enough payoff in the seasons that we're in that make it feel worth it to stick it out to the end. Because like the way I was kind of explaining it to someone else was that like, okay, season 1, we have, let's say 30 questions, right? 30 questions and no answers. And then we get to season 2 and we get like maybe 5 answers. So we're down to 25 questions. But then they asked 20 more questions. So we're up to 45. And then we get to season 3 and they answered like 2, but then asked like 50 more. So it's like we keep getting more questions than we're getting answers, that it feels underwhelming, and it feels like we're not going to get that payoff. Because like, who did burn down the cabin? That was such an integral part of this season. I feel like we're never going to know.
I don't think we will know.
And it's
I don't think we'll ever get that answer.
They were setting it up to make it seem like maybe it was Ty, maybe it was Van. Like there were all these little Easter eggs that seemed to be there, and now we're just never going to get it. Who was Javi's friend in the caves?
Well, this is the thing where, and like part of it you can like you can argue that it's like we'll never get the answer because they're never going to ask the questions to get the answer. They don't care anymore. Like those yes. They don't care. Why do they care? They've resolved this issue. But like for us as consumers, that isn't resolved. Like that narratively hasn't finished. So like unless we kind of even if it is just like who gives a shit, like that's all it could be, right? Where it could be just like that's it. Because then it has closed that book. But at the moment, that page is still unturned. And it's the same with like there is so much like in the adult timeline that just feels like what is happening?
What is the point? Yeah.
Here? Like Walter's there. I'm like, Walter's also not there. And I'm like, where did he go? Where is he? How is he just MIA for like the whole season?
And I get him and Misty like broke up or whatever, but like to your point, like what is he doing? Where is he?
What is he doing? Like, what is he? Obviously, he's probably doing something bigger, but I'm like, what? But what is he actually doing though? Like, yes. I'm confused. And there's also like we were meant to have another character introduced in season 3 and never got that. So like there seems like there was like again maybe things have been edited like out and differently to
which character.
I can't remember who it was, but there was someone on the IMDb who everyone was like, oh, who is this going to be? Like, is it going to be like adult Aquila or whatever? And then we just never saw them.
That got addressed.
Oh, did it? Okay.
She was never meant to be in the cast. She was part of the crew.
Okay, cool. That nails that down then.
But yeah, it's like stuff like that got run with. And then so because I saw there's a TikToker who's very big in the YellowJackets community. I think her name is Caitlin. I could be wrong. Did an interview with the actress who plays young Aquila, and like even she brought up how like in the finale there's like 3 different plots all happening.
Yes.
And you do see that, but the way they edited it, you lose that. And so like it feels messy because like basically like Van and Misty and Natalie have their plan to get help, but then it was Jen and Melissa and Aquila and I think one other that I can't remember that wanted to take Shauna out. Travis wasn't really he wanted to take Shauna out.
Yeah,
they wanted to take Shauna out. Like their whole plan was to literally kill Shauna.
He was like on the periphery of like when he like helped stall the hunt per se. Like he was kind of with Jen in the idea of like, let's buy Mari time, but like he was kind of just like there as
I
like a
also think he
being.
was just drunk and not really
He was
doing
just doing
anything.
his own thing. He was fed up. He's so done.
Which that's another like thing. Like the assassination of so many characters in the show make me so sad. Travis's
Well, it's because
character,
there's so many, and it's
yes,
so hard to narratively satisfy that many characters because you can't just kill them off without giving them like something. And I think that's the problem they've ran into, where it's like
yeah,
you're now free season. In the first season, you could kill like a lot of people, and it's kind of like, yeah, this is just collateral. Like we don't need to know these people. But now it's like, if why don't we know them? Like that we are starting to get the creeps in of them. But I'm like, you can't tell me everything about someone like Jen and it makes sense. Like, why are we suddenly learning about like
because
you have to do it
setting up to
organically,
kill
and it's
her.
yeah, like, and you have to do it organically, and that's really hard when she's not present. Like she's so on the periphery, and it's like it doesn't make sense like at all.
Well, and
So
it's just like the writing styles just seem to have taken a nosedive because, like, I think of season 1, right? The end of season 1, Natalie's getting kidnapped and she's getting
mhm.
that voicemail of someone going, "Who the fuck is Lottie Matthews?" And you're like, "Oh my god, adult Lottie is joining the fray." Like, it was this big moment. And then season 3, you're telling me with your whole chest that Melissa's introduction as an adult was her wearing a backwards fucking hat. I'm
That
sorry.
took
That
me
was the
out.
worst thing I
That
have
took me
ever
out.
seen.
That took me out of everything. Because
It
why
was
would she still
horrendous.
continue to wear backwards hats? She's genuinely like that's a 40-year-old woman.
And they only did it to like because that's the only thing we know about her is that she was in love with Shauna
But
and wore a backwards hat.
but
Like
also
that's all
like
we had.
but also like it's so unnecessary because when the trailer dropped and Hilary Swank was in it, everyone correctly on the money, without her having the hat on, was like, this is adult Melissa. We don't need the hat. We can put Clue and Clue together. Like, who is the only like blonde, blue-eyed person left? Oh, the other girl. Like, there's no
Yeah.
need for that. There was no need for that. It felt like they were trying to compensate for some people not picking up on clues. And I was like, that's fine. People aren't going to pick up on everything, and that's okay. And if they can't pick up on something like that, then like they genuinely need to like get in the bin. Like, your media literacy is like in the floor. Like, please
Yes.
go watch another show. Like, you need to actually consume your media
Yeah.
better, because that is insane if you can't pick up that clue. Like, that's genuinely bananas to me.
Yeah.
But I'm like, you don't need that. It seems like they're trying to now like shove things quite strongly to be like, oh, are you seeing this? And I'm like, yeah, we are. Like, we get it. The point is it's meant to be subtle. I don't need it to be force fed to me. That's not satisfying in any way. That's really off putting and jarring. Like, no, thank you.
Yes.
No,
It's
thank you.
the way that the season 3 adult timeline just basically became like a murder mystery whodunit sitcom
But
was
a really poor
such
one.
such a disservice not only to the people watching the show but the actors in the show. Like, all of these
Exactly.
actors are fantastic and you are
Yeah.
giving them nothing to work with.
Literally nothing. Yeah, and that whole end of that saga was so unsatisfying.
Yes.
And I understand that that's obviously going to feed into season 4. I get that. But again, like, it's so annoying because when you've already tanked Shauna's character, and presumably, as has been for the previous 2 seasons, she is like the main character. Like, realistically, she's the main character. Like, we follow her very strongly in the adult timeline, and the same goes for the teen timeline, especially. Like, that's just the way it is.
Yes.
And like, obviously now that's going to continue to be a through thread now that her family has like left. So like, obviously she's going to be like, where the fuck is my husband and child? Like, I'm gonna go find them, even though they're like, leave me alone. Like, she's not gonna leave them alone. So it's like you've now ruined that, because we just like, what is that even gonna be?
Yeah.
I
I
don't want
also
to just follow her around. Like, as much as I love her, I'm like, I don't want to just follow her around. What's the
yeah.
benefit of that? There isn't one. Like, and
Well, and
then
also,
what's everyone
like,
else doing? Just vibing?
I
Like, what the fuck is going on?
probably. Well, no, because I guess now Ty and Misty are gonna hunt down Shauna.
That's what I mean. It just feels like Sean is hunting someone. Like, they're just all like well, I guess that kind of makes sense. They're all hunting each other, which is literally what they did as kids. But like, it's just very like, that's not a great way to tell a story.
No, it's not. And I genuinely feel like the writers spent too much time on like Reddit. Like,
Yeah.
because okay, don't get me wrong, I love Jeff. He's a great character. But like the baby girlification of Jeff that happened in season 3 is so weird to
Insane.
me because like are we forgetting that this is the same man that tried to blackmail the rest of the YellowJackets in season 1
Yeah.
because he knew what they did and he was willing to use that against them to extort money out of them? Like, he's not an innocent person. He's not this
No.
uwu needs protection from Shauna. Him and Shauna were hooking up as teens. Like, he's shown a pattern of bad choices, but suddenly he is this tiny little baby boy that needs to be protected from Shauna. And I'm like, what the fuck happened to my funny, witty man? Because
Well,
he was
this is the
funny,
thing.
and now he's just there.
I do wonder if potentially it is very intentional in the sake that it's his way of trying to, as much as Callie already has a disinterest in Shauna, like as a parental figure, it works perfectly to try and be like, because like she didn't really care for either parent, but like Shauna more so, she kind of egged on. Jeff was always just kind of like there, he's like the boring dad, whereas like now he's kind of like a little bit more. So like genuinely, I could see Jeff still being ultimately quite a large puppet master and a bigger problem in a bigger situation here, because A, he's done it before, but also now with the motivation of Callie like trying to keep her safe, like it becomes very like, oh look, I am terrified of your mother, like you're not your mother, like let's get away. Like it's very much like there isn't really a need to do that. It feels rather extreme. Like if you go to Shauna and be like, hi, our daughter has killed someone, Shauna is like, oh my fucking god, let's go to the police, because she's literally killed people and is literally insane. Like obviously I know and like Misty doesn't seem to give a shit. She's kind of like, no, I just told him to leave. But I'm like, why? Like why? Like what is the ramifications of this? Lottie's dad is not well enough to understand it either. He's very much convinced it's just whatever. So there's no consequences to this action, really. So like, there's a bigger picture here, but I have no fucking idea what it is because the characters are all ass. Also, like, I don't actually know the reasoning.
Did Jeff ever get the money to pay off the loan sharks, or did we just forget about that? Because I'm like thinking about it.
I think
did he have the money?
I don't know. Probably Ty just gave it to him. I don't know.
Like that's the thing. And also like Ty was a senator. She was voted into the Senate. And like,
and now she's just out here just doing shit. Like
they gave this throwaway line that like, oh, she just resigned or impeached herself. I guess. But like that was so much of her character focus of season 1 that for that to just be like tossed away now, it's like, what are you doing?
Also, how is she going all these places and not one person's like, hey, aren't you the senator who like left?
Yes. No one recognizes her?
Like someone knows. Like she was so worried about the truck driver when she got picked up initially to hitchhike to Van, like recognizing her, and now suddenly she doesn't give a shit. I'm like, girl.
I'm glad you brought up Van again, because actually that's another thing that I need to be angry about. And it's the fact that as an adult, and even really as a teen, Van's character did not exist outside of Taissa. And it bothers me endlessly.
Yeah.
Because yes, we knew that we were going to lose Van. Realistically, we're going to lose all of them. There's going to be one left. Is it going to be Misty? Is it going to be Shauna? I don't know. You can make arguments either way. So like we knew we were going to lose her, and likely in season 3. But the way that they introduced her in season 2, because Ty went and found her, and then all she ever was basically Ty's girlfriend.
Yeah, it is frustrating that she never got evolved to that. It does bring back to, like, I think I mentioned it, like, maybe in our season 3, like, preamble, I mentioned how, like, they're all in pairs, and we're losing one half of the pair. And, like, that narratively still works because we always knew we were going to lose one half of that pair. Like, as much as people are like, oh, Missy and Nat weren't friends, they were a pair, the same as Nat and Travis being a pair, the brothers being a pair. Like Lottie and Akila arguably were a pair for a short period of time, so were Lottie and Travis. Like we are losing them slowly, and we're slowly dwindling that down to people who kind of like never really had much other options.
Yeah.
So that's why it's also interesting, because I think, as a lot of people saying, like, people think that like Misty's going to be the sole survivor because she's not technically a Yellow Jacket, was always on the sidelines, always like a cheerleader figure. And like, what is worse, like the worst fate for Misty is to be alone as someone who has the fundamental desire to help. Whilst she has lost that quite a lot in her adult thing, but I also think that makes sense with the whole like Nat thing. So I'm like, kind of get it. But then you have like people like Lisa and stuff who like step back into the fray to only exit again. And it's like, I get why she came back into the fray for like the Lottie plotline, but it's also like, this seems so unnecessary. Like, she did not need to return. Is she gonna just return again? And why would she return again? Like,
Also, how many people were in that cult? Why is Lottie only giving Lisa money?
this, because everyone else was just chilling with the bees and the goats, I guess.
Like,
That's what
I
I mean.
feel like
Lisa's...
there's it's so many surface level relationships, and like you said, like, you can't explore all of them, but it's like you're also exploring none of them and giving us nothing.
Also, Jeff and Randy, like, we kind of got them and then we kind of didn't, and then like Randy was so big and now he's not again, and I'm like...
And then when they were volunteering at the elderly center, and it's like Randy was all mad, it's like, I really thought that was going to be like a thing, and then
no,
it went nowhere.
No, that's why it's so odd, because I'm like, you bring these people back and it feels like, okay, there's motivation here, like, makes sense. It makes sense as to why they've re-entered the fray, and then it's like, no. And I'm like, oh, I suppose not. Like, also, like, the person that Nat meets with, like, this is way back when, like, in season 1, when she meets with the person and she's like, oh, who drained Travis' bank account? Never touch that again. I'm like, where is this knowledge and woman and information here? Because it seems important, and we have, like, I know we know it was Lottie, but like, we have no information as to like anything else regarding that scenario at all.
Also, you're telling me Jessica Roberts, no one's questioning that one? Like, I know the whole point of her death is to look not suspicious, but like, you're telling me that never comes back around in any sort of fashion?
It's very...
And I will die on the hill that Adam Martin was supposed to be more important.
100%. I do wonder if we'll get more of that still. Like, I don't think that is fully closed, because we kind of got the re-mention of it, which felt interesting, that there was a re-mention of like, oh, we know what Sean is capable of, so it feels like potentially there's more to it. But it's that's what I mean. Like, but again, it's like, is it simply just a red herring and we're too inclined to read into everything? But then if you're going to make us read into everything, then you have to commit to that. You can't set up the precedents that read into everything and then be like, oh, why are you reading into this? Like, no, that means you haven't told your story well enough. That means that your writing isn't good enough to understand when things are just there for fun and things aren't there. Like, things are meant to be more. And it's unclear now. And it's also like, I'm curious as to where this whole like scientist plotline continues to go, because it seems like such an interesting plotline to just like dive onto. Like, no prior acknowledgement of it at all. And we actually know like there was slight media attention brought to this, and obviously the obituaries of them and things. So it seems very interesting that it's kind of like I understand why obviously the adults wouldn't bring it up, because you don't want to bring up that kind of stuff, but it's like the fact that it's just been sprung up on us now, and I'm like, if this doesn't continue on, like, this is so annoying, because that is not resolved in the adult timeline.
I think that one will, because from what I have been told, so my mom reads a lot of articles about the show, because she also watches it, and apparently when this show was originally pitched, the scientists were like part of the pitch.
Okay, that makes sense then. Fair.
So they should theoretically play more of a part. But the other thing is, and I'm not 100% sure on this, because like, I've seen arguments for it, I've seen it against it, I cannot find like conclusive evidence, but it does seem very likely that Juliette Lewis, who played adult Natalie, left the show earlier than intended.
Yeah, I fully think that is it seems quite glaringly obvious now.
Yes. And so, because a combination of, she wasn't happy with where her character was going, and she was also unhappy with playing an addict, because that it was a very personal issue for her, and she was not given that knowledge like ahead of time. So I fully understand her leaving, and I think her leaving did mess up the the stretch of the show, because I do think this was meant to come down to like a Shauna, Natalie like heading in the adult timeline, much like it did in the teen timeline. I think we were supposed to see that, and we're not getting that. And as a result, they're trying to scramble to like figure that out, and they're not doing a very good job of it.
I genuinely think, because I saw someone else mention it, and it's quite interesting, where it's like, let's say that adult Nat lived, like that storyline continues to progress on. And they were like, Callie was the one who was meant to die. Like, Misty was going to kill Callie. Like, that was actually what was meant to happen there. And I was like, I fully agree that that is correct. Like, I fully think that she was meant to die, because then I then think that basically everything that Callie has continued to essentially do is then done through Nat. Like, Nat ends up killing Lottie. Like, I know that there's this whole like wilderness baby thing, but people were saying like it doesn't really make sense for it to be Callie. It makes more sense for it to potentially be whatever the fuck is going on with Sammy. I know we kind of know it's because of the other tie, but like there's something fucking weird as fishy going on there, bro. So like, I don't know. It just it seemed like, because it was like Lottie was so fascinated with like Shauna's actual wilderness baby, and I'm like, why? We have no actual reasoning as to why she's so obsessed with Callie, aside from the fact that it's Shauna's other kid. Like, there's no real reason, to be honest. Like, so it seemed like that was kind of like, we'll like jam this in there because there is no other solution, which like I get, but it's not very like wrapped up nicely. But yeah, especially with the fact that Nat is the one who calls for help at the end in the finale. There's no way that she was not, because that's the whole battle, right? Is you have, and we even saw it, there's that divide of people who wanted to leave and get help, and people who were like, no, person who was like, no, we're staying. And it's like, that's the whole continuous battle that we see. And it's like, the fact that Nat's out of that picture, there is no battle there. There is, the Shauna's got no confrontation with anyone at all, aside from, I guess, Misty. But like, Misty is confrontation with everyone because everyone hates her. So like, that's not really new.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for her. So I'm like, yeah, it sucks. It sucks. But I'm like, that sucks, man. Because you have someone who like, especially because you have all the people who were like so desperate to escape the wilderness were going back to home lives, which were like genuinely fucking awful. And that is like so incredibly depressing, and that makes me really upset. Because also like Van fixed the like transponder, and we got like nothing on that. Like, okay, is that just meant to be like, oh, remember that the fact that in the adult life she's like really handy with like VHS? I'm like, that's a fucking stupid tie.
Yeah.
That's so weak and pathetic, and I hate it. Like, ew, do more with that. There's more to it than that. Like, come on.
Well, and quite frankly, like, I feel like Misty breaking that thing in season 1 should have been a bigger issue, especially with like, and I've seen people talk about this, the way season 3 played out, there is no reason for the rest of them to ostracize Misty and still be buddy with Shauna. And I don't buy that whole thing with Ty's speech at the end of, oh, I forgot how awful she was out there. Like, yeah, sure, trauma represses things, but like not to that extent. So like there is no reason for them to, there is no reason for any of them to speak to Shauna ever.
No, I wouldn't. Are you kidding me?
Do you think they went to their wedding? They all probably went to her wedding. Like,
well, they said that was the last time they all saw each other, wasn't it?
That's right. Yeah. So it's like,
so we know they did.
Why the fuck would any of you still talk to Shauna after all that?
And this is interesting, right? Because then it comes to the question of, is Shauna being the Antler Queen? Genuinely, is she the embodiment of the wilderness at that point? And that draw is what is drawing them to her. Because if so, then fair enough. But then that hasn't been, and maybe it will be further explored, but that hasn't been explored enough, if that's the reasoning you want to give. Because that's understandable. I can see that. Because they were all very inclined to follow Lottie when she was like the lead of the pack. So there is this idea of like cultism coming through. So like, if you're going to say that with Shauna taking on this role, that it is that way, fine. But genuinely, in comparison to like Lottie and Nat who have led, like she's fucking atrocious. Like genuinely committing war crimes.
Yes. Well, and the way some things have played out, the writers have also made Shauna really racist.
Yeah, I'm really like, Not I feel like they have not dealt with those topics in a very like well handled way at all. I know a lot of people expressed a lot of unhappiness and like unsettled with the way that they're dealing with like the characters who are like black or like or at least like the actors, but like obviously
Mhm.
therefore they
Mhm.
play or indigenous, etc. And like the way that they have been like character assassinated and also their deaths in the show. And like, yeah, it is when you actually put it down and you boil it down, like whether or not it is actually with malicious intent, it doesn't matter because it's impact over intent and it is really fucking awful and weird. And I'm like kind of annoyed that that is the way that they've chosen to do that. Like, ooh, like
Because like
the whole hair thing is literally disgusting. And
so on that, I've seen people argue for and against that. Now, I will say, like, whether or not Maury was indigenous is really up for debate right now.
yeah, I know.
So, and I think they tried to like play into it the way that Shauna takes Hannah's hair, and like that through thread just like wasn't there. And I get that, like in a way, they were trying to make it seem like each death got more gruesome and less humane. But like
Yeah.
by doing it with the characters that they did, unfortunately, it is just it's coming across as very careless when I don't
It is.
think that was their intent, but at the same time,
No.
like they did not take enough care
Yeah.
to have that forethought.
That's what I mean. It's impact over intent. Like, I don't necessarily feel as if there's any true malicious behind that. But then again, I cannot speak on that. Like, that is not my place to say.
Right.
But it just feels very, like you said, it just feels very mishandled. And like, it's just frustrating that these are conversations that still need to be happening in media, but also like are continuously happening. And like, there is so much like back and forth. And it's like, listen, at the end of the day, we just need to talk about it and be like, this is not okay, and deal with that. And then hopefully things move on and continue to get better because it's just weird. Like,
And I do think that I do think TikTok has run with it a little bit. Like I
oh,
think
very
going as
much
far
so.
to say
Yeah.
that Mari was scalped is like
That's kind
a
of
little too far.
She did say just take her hair. Like if she said like decapitate her, then I'm like, yes, I feel like that is implying that she was definitely scalped, like for sure. Taking someone's hair, I'm like, it's the bottom line of it is like it's an incredibly disrespectful act post decease, and we haven't seen them do that before. Especially with the tying her up to like bleed her dry. That again, that
Yes.
level of brutality we haven't seen before. And like if it was anybody else, you'd be like, oh, it doesn't matter so much. It just does become because it becomes a very blurry line with the character being Mari. So it's very hard and like weird to step on, but I'm like, I don't know. I do think people are taking it like too far, but it's like, isn't it important to acknowledge because it's important to acknowledge.
I think
It's just odd. It's just also like odd and frustrating.
yeah, I think there needed to be another death between Javi and Mari that wasn't
Yeah.
Coach. Because, like, yes, we
Yeah.
see Coach, and like, yeah, they decapitated him, which was really weird, and they like put his head on a table. So, like, that was weird. But yeah, like, I think that the hair thing, like, there's no reason for it.
No.
So, like, is there a scene that got shot that got cut? Like, did they edit something out that explained that better? Because like I said, we kind of see it like Jackie, she gets to keep her clothes and they just burn her. And then like Javi, they carry him kind of like an animal basically.
Like a
And then
pig.
with Mari, it's like a step further. So it's like they're showing the way that their humanity is collapsing, but at the same time, like I said, like Shauna's just suddenly this big bad evil and everybody else is like not
Yeah.
on that level. So
Because
that disconnect isn't there that
yeah.
Mari would get treated like that if everybody else is still sane.
That's the problem because it's like we know that Shauna doesn't like Mari. Like we understand that. We
Yes.
actively understand that. And it's also part of the reason that when Shauna clocked on to what was happening, she actively chose to step in and make it so she was gonna draw the card. She didn't have to. She could have acknowledged the fact that it was rigged and let it happen. There is no reason for her to have stepped in at all.
Yes.
But she actively chose to because it was Mari, which again, troubling motivations. And then for her to step on her high horse and be like, you rigged it when she actually actively also rigged it is very funny.
Yeah.
But it's so interesting. We have not seen that level of disrespect to someone who has been chosen by the wilderness, and especially because they're like so worried about honoring the wilderness, and then it feels like that is not the way to honor the wilderness, by giving them what they want, by like taking from the dead. Like I know like you're killing someone, but like to actually like actively take from them seems too far. Like that doesn't make sense, because it'd be different if they were collecting like mementos from everyone who was like chosen by the wilderness per se. Like if they kept them at Harvey's, then I'd be like, yeah, okay, and they're adding that to the garb. But like with it only just being Mari's hat, I'm like, that's really fucking weird, because there's no reason for this at all. Like you said, there's not even like an acknowledgement of like, we're gonna do this because Lottie says like this is the way to like keep her heart, like just because you can. Like what the fuck.
Well, and also, like, even, like, the Antler Queen, where did that outfit come from? They had never
Vibes.
done anything like that before, and, like,
It's just
we see it as the
crazy
viewer of,
bitch.
like, Natalie when they're doing the trial with Coach, and she's wearing, like, the little thing, and we're like, "Oh, that's the start of the Antler Queen." So, like, as the viewer, we see it, but, like, there's nothing that they give us in perspective for the characters that makes sense. Why Shauna even dressed like that?
Because she could, I think.
And, like, that's so, like, annoying and, like, frustrating as a viewer, because it's, like, it feels like it should be this bigger thing, and then, like, all
Yeah.
of a sudden she was just there dressed like that.
I do think, like I said, I think it comes back to this idea of, like, I think that has been lost in the source almost of Shauna embodying the wilderness. Because when that line where it's like, there was no it was just us. Like, I think that is genuinely true. But I also think, like, I do think there is an it. And I think there is the potential that they have, like, not necessarily forgotten it, but I feel as if the people who, like, kind of disconnected really, really strongly from it were all people who, like, had it in them at the moment. Like, Travis was someone who, like, really repelled it, kind of got to it with Lottie and then pushed it away as an adult and then came back to it. The same with Nat, kind of seeing maybe the same with Shauna as well. So, like, that's the interesting thing. But it's like, we aren't actually seeing that at all. Like, even if it was just Shauna writing in her journal more, like, because we had that, like, it makes sense for her to, like, journal. Like, she's been doing that and she
Yeah.
hasn't done it at all. And I'm like, even if she's just writing in her journal, like, I don't know, whatever, like, to make some sort of through thread there of this kind of divulge. And it's like, there doesn't need to be an it per se. Like, it could all just be very much mass hysteria in their heads, but it doesn't feel like that is the case anymore. And that's okay. But then it's like, you need to actively show that progression, because at the moment there is no progression of that at all. We have no idea what's happening on, because we don't even have the screaming anymore. Because again, like, that screaming has kind of been explained away with the frogs and also like the birds. So it's kind of like, ugh. But then you have Aquila going into this cave. So there is this idea of like, there is still something going on. And then Misty's glasses at the end. So it's kind of like, there's too many coincidences for it to be coincidental. So I'm just like, I just feel like they've mishandled that massively. And I don't know.
I don't know how they're gonna get it back. Is
no,
my
that's the
worry.
problem. That's also the problem. It's also interesting, and I saw someone say this, and I was like, this is actually quite an interesting point, where it's like, with Shauna keeping Jackie's necklace, which is used for the hunt, it's interesting that she brought that back, and like, was she wearing it when they got like who like did she like, what is the scenario? Where does that necklace chain of events, that passing? Obviously, Shauna gets it back, but it's like, what is that passing of the sword? Because obviously, then Callie has it, and then like, so there's this idea of like the hunt being passed on through that necklace too. So it's like, there's so many things going on, and I'm like, I don't know if they know that they have this many things going on.
See, yeah, I thought Lottie had the necklace, and that was part
This
of
is
the whole thing, was like Shauna was like, "You brought
where did
that
you get
back?
that?
Like, where did that
That's what
come
I
from?"
mean. But it's
Yeah.
like, but Shauna takes it back after every, like, well, as we've seen, like, she is the one who like they pass it on and then it comes back to her. So it's like, that's what I mean. There's this like disconnect of it all. So it's very like confusing.
Yeah. I desperately wanted Antler Queen to just be like an entity.
Yeah, I thought it was gonna be like deceased Jackie or something, like still carrying that leadership role.
It to be like, especially like when we see that thing with Lottie in the cave, and it's like got these long fingers, and like, that's, I guess that's part of like where because we see the Antler Queen there, and then we see Shauna dress up like that, and it's like, did Lottie make this for you? Like,
Yeah, I think that's kind
does
of
it
implied.
come? And
I
it's
think that's like, but it's such a loose implication that it's not
yes,
satisfying at all.
they like kind of throw that at you and then force feed you backwards hat Melissa. And I'm like,
That's what I mean.
you need to find a better like balance of showing these things.
Yeah, because I do genuinely think they're running down the path of like Shauna. It has the Shauna we are seeing now in the teen timeline is the wilderness entity herself, like embodied by the wilderness entity
Yeah.
for some reason. Because her escalation to like true brutality is low-key insane. Like, obviously that makes sense, like you're
Yes.
saying. Obviously a lot of grief, but that escalation has been like kind of bananas to the point where it's like there's something else cooking here, because like what is actually occurring? Because even so, like, even though when she's had like moments of like she had, which previously she had outbursts, and now it's like a continuous like rage and like anger. And it's like, again, does this make sense? Sure. But it feels very like over the top from previous like explorations of her character.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm like, what
I
is the situation?
I feel like they're never going to tell us if it's supernatural or if it's just them. And that's frustrating because of the
But
way the
then,
story is unfolding. Like, just in the
yeah,
sense that, like, it feels like they're not right now, it feels like they're not gonna tell us because they don't even know, and they don't wanna commit one way or the other, which
mm.
that to me feels like lazy writing.
Yeah, you don't have to commit. Like, I think there's a world where you don't commit to either. And like that's the point, right? Because like I don't think the characters ever truly know. And I think there is the satisfaction of them never knowing either. Like they're constantly grappling with that. And there's this idea of are you someone like Lottie that finds peace in the fact that there was something out there otherworldly empowering you in that moment to make you make those choices, like when she's talking to the therapist where she's like, I don't know if I was ever truly ill, like that's
Mhm.
quite like she's grappling with that. Or are you someone like Shauna per se? I guess she kind of like connects to a little bit, who like it's like, actually no, like it was just us, like we've got to, although she doesn't take responsibility for her actions, we have to like acknowledge that we were just kind of fucked in the head, and no one else seems to acknowledge that but me. And that is what makes her like who she is. Like everyone else is kind of like, oh, it's okay, like, where she's kind of like truly not grappled with that at all. And like that's okay. You can still have that be the line that's towed, but you have to do it well. And at the moment, it's not being done well at all, because
Yes.
it's so confusing and so messy. And like you said, like I don't think they truly know either. And you can tell it because it's the thing with like Missy's glasses. I'm like, oh, it's just a coincidence. But I'm like, yeah, but why focus? You focused on that so heavily. And then if that symbol means truly nothing, like truly, truly nothing, which I'm sure it doesn't, I'm sure it does mean something. It's so like unsatisfying.
That that whole scene with Misty and her glasses and the smile makes me so annoyed because they reshot it, which, like, I understand, but they reshot it poorly.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you're gonna and I get it, because at the time when they filmed it, they didn't have Christina Ricci, so, she wasn't wearing contacts, like, the eye color didn't match, which truthfully, I could not tell that much, I don't
I
think it was that deep.
yeah,
I think you also could have edited that, like, if you really wanted
yeah.
to, but they reshot it, the lighting is different, the background is different, like, so much is different, and I've seen people be like, "Oh, it's a perspective of, like, an outsider versus an insider," and I'm like, "No, I think it's just poor writing and, like, directing at this point." Like, if it
Yeah.
was still season 1, I would say, "Sure, I could see that being the narrative," but I think season 3 was so messy that it just shows, like, they can't even keep continuity in their own show.
No, I agree. I think it's just it really takes you out of it because it's meant to be such an impactful moment and it's just not.
Yes,
Because it's just like, oh, sure, I guess. Which is very frustrating. It's very frustrating.
it is.
Um, because that feel like that is a good moment where it's like, okay, this you can handhold us with. Like, do focus on this. Like, do give us this. This is important,
Yes,
right?
yes.
The same with the previous shots that we've had of the symbol in like season 1 and season 2. Like, yes, do focus on this. Like, it's important to thread that through. But it's like when you do it and it just feels very like lazy, it's just like, well, I don't want it then. Don't give it to me at all. Just would
Well, especially
rather
when
not.
that symbol hasn't even really been relevant in season 3. Like, they don't bring it up. They don't talk about it. Like, we see
Nope.
it in season 2 because Lottie stitches it on that blanket for Shauna's baby shower, and people are like, "Why the fuck would you do that, Lottie? That's weird. Like, this symbol is clearly not a great thing." And then in season 3, they don't even talk about it. They don't bring it up. It's not referenced anywhere really. So it's like, does this symbol matter? I'm starting to think it doesn't.
Well, this is the thing, right? Like, it's so confusing because I know people have been like getting it tattooed or like whatever, and then the writers have been like, "Hey, don't do that because you don't know what it means yet." And I'm like, "What the fuck does it mean then?" Because it means something fucking awful. But then I'm like,
Yeah.
but then why are we not talking more about it? They seem very unfazed by this. And like, you'd think that when they receive postcards with this fucking freaky ass symbol on, if it meant something literally insane, they would be freaking the fuck out. And clearly they don't really care. And I'm like, I'd be losing my mind if it meant something truly horrific.
I feel like the writers are just saying that to like keep mystery alive and be like,
I think so.
Like, oh, you don't know things, like we've still got stuff up our sleeve. But like, I have such a distrust for the writers at this point. Like, I'm going to watch season 4, but I'm not I'm not excited for it at this point.
Yeah, it's gonna take a lot to like grapple back, I think, the intrigue and mystery that was there for the previous 2 seasons. Again, I think especially because it feels as if there's just so much going on that I'm like, I don't even know what I want answers for because there's just too much. Like, like going into season 3, it's like, okay, I want to know more about like Walter, and I want to know more about like what is happening with like Van. Like, there's things there, and now it's like I don't fucking know or really care. Just give me something to work with at this point because I don't know what I'm looking for. Like, when the audience doesn't know what they want, you don't know what you're doing.
If Walter's character doesn't have a good payoff, I'm
be
suing
so fucking pissed
for emotional distress.
I'm also
Because that
suing
man
for Elijah Wood
annoys me.
to. Also, I'm suing in respect to Elijah Wood for having them waste his time.
Yes. Honestly, all of the actors, like, it's such a talented cast, and you are
Exactly, that's what makes it
wasting
more
them.
annoying. What makes it more annoying, I'm like, you have such amazing, amazing people, and it's falling flat, and I'm like, bruh,
Yeah.
do something. Especially when the characters seem to have quite a lot of love and passion for the show, and it's like this isn't being translated onto the screen at all. So there's a disconnect happening.
And like season 3, someone was like, all of the adult timeline was them just driving to different places. And I was like, yeah, you know what it was.
It literally was. And I'm like, I just don't care enough.
I really don't.
At all.
Like,
it's like
seasons 1 and 2, I was like, this is such a good show. Let me recommend this to everybody I know.
Yeah.
And now season 3, I'm like, I'm sorry to anybody that watched this because of me, because what a disappointment that is.
No, but it's one of those things where it's like, it's hard because you want it to just be, there is so much potential there, and it's frustrating when it's not being capitalized on because like, no, this has such good it has such good characters, and it has such a good story, and it's such an interestingly morally complex scenario, and it's just not being touched upon in the way that feels satisfying anymore, and that is annoying because like, especially like, there just doesn't feel like there's a lot to chew on. Well, actually, there feels like there's too much to chew on, but not digestibly. Because, like, I feel like if we went through like our conversations where I'd watch the episodes and like give you my thoughts. Previously, I had like loads and loads and loads, and it got to the point where we got halfway through season 3, and we genuinely weren't even talking about the episodes because there was just nothing to fucking say. Yeah. And all I said after the finale was that was something. I had no other thoughts and feelings because I genuinely was like, I don't know what to say. Because I consumed it. When Van died. I literally didn't even say that was sad because I literally was like, I guess. Like, I guess.
I was upset because it was just Melissa.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Also, like, I still don't like the fact that it was her. Like, I'm kind of bummed about that. Like, I feel like it shouldn't have been by the hands of someone. It should have not been by the hands of someone. I don't know. Like, I don't think she was ever going to die of cancer, but like in my head, I just kind of thought if it was going to be by the hands of anyone, it needed to be by the hands of Ty.
Yes.
And by what means, I don't know. But like, you know, I'm just like, it just feels very like you're trying to get rid of this character for a reason quickly. And I feel like there was no reason to do that.
Melissa's character did like a 180. Like, She was
Yeah,
all
that's what
like,
I mean.
I've forgiven myself, I've moved on." And then all of a sudden she's killing Van in the name of the wilderness, and, like, I get what they're trying to go for is that it's still in them and it's still there, but it just did not pay off in the way that they wanted it to, that it feels weird and it feels cheap, and you killed off a very beloved character in a very shitty way.
Yeah, because I agree. Like what I was saying about Melissa, I'm like, do I think that the character's slightly busted in the way it was introduced? Yeah, sure. But I think it's a really interesting concept of having this person who A felt quite ostracized by the rest of the survivors, which is a very interesting dynamic to have. Like she felt
Yeah,
very like insecure. So that's really interesting. And we kind of already get that from Melissa anyway in the teen timeline, but she's kind of come into a little bit more of her own by Shauna's side. But we kind of
yeah,
get the idea that yeah, okay, when you go back to real life, Shauna's going to go back to her comfortability of life, which is with Jeff, and then progress on, and you are left stranded because you don't have anyone to fall to. That sucks ass because, as we know, everyone else that she kind of is friends with in the wilderness is gonna fucking die. So like she is
yeah,
definitely like on her own. So it's a very interesting character to have where you're like they genuinely have like moved on. Like they have rebuilt their life. And is it a really odd way that they have rebuilt their life by marrying the daughter of someone that they held captive? Yeah, it's fucking
yeah,
odd. But they still have moved on and like presumably, like, let's say that they genuinely are in a very loving relationship. Good for you. Like, we love that. Let's go lesbians, like slay. Like, but
yeah,
I'm like, it just doesn't then why ruin her that way? Like she was all on this like forgiveness, like, I hope you can forgive yourself. And then it's like, no, actually, I'm going to murder a woman with cancer. And I'm like, girl, be so for real. Like,
also, Team
just like stab
Melissa
her in the leg a little bit. Like, you don't have to kill her. Like, give her a little like ankle slice.
Team Melissa pissed me off, okay?
She's
Because
hanging out.
when her and Shauna, like, finally broke up, whatever you wanna call it, and
Yeah.
Melissa's like, "Why can't you just be nice?" Bitch, you spent the entire season egging Shauna on to be an awful person. You do not get to sit there and say, "Why can't you just be nice to me?
I
I'm
know.
just a girl."
I'm just a girl.
Fuck
Yeah.
off.
Yeah, literally. It's like I think you are confused. That's why I genuinely think like Shauna is like the wilderness entity. Like I think because I think those who like genuinely are around her also get like leached onto that. Because we see that Melissa switch up. We see her go from someone who's egging her on to being someone who's like genuinely like, oh no, I'm back to like my kind of normal, quiet, reserved self. I'm like,
It
there's something there.
not to talk about the Forbidden series, but it almost sounds like you're trying to say Shauna is a Horcrux.
But a little bit though. Like I
Yeah.
genuinely do think that is kind of the insinuation of it because even when Lottie was feeding off people, like I know she was also drugging people, but there's this like there's that insinuation where it's like actively causing like distress and harm to those who are connected to it. And I can see that still being persistent. Like if you're gonna say that the Antler Queen is the embodiment of the wilderness, which even if it's not literally, it is symbolically,
Yeah.
the idea that those people who are around Shauna are like massively impacted by that kind of makes sense. Um so I'd be curious by that and see how that plays out because I don't know. It's very odd. And if that's the case, again, they haven't done it in a way that feels satisfying.
Yeah. At
So I'm
this
like,
point, all I wanna know, where's Aquila?
dead.
I know, but also we saw her enter that cave with Lottie. She never came out. Where's Aquila?
I think Lottie
Give her
bonked
back to me,
her.
please.
I think Lottie bonked that woman in that cave.
I think so too.
Yeah, because this is what again, I think there's this element of the wilderness being very parasitic to those who don't truly give in or show resistance. And Aquila was beginning to show resistance in the same way Travis was, but Travis managed to like loosen it. So I wonder if that is kind of the manifestation of that because she kept having like those freaky visions of like all the animal like she's always been very like in tune with like the animals of the wilderness, like with the mouse or the rat or whatever it was and it being dead.
Oh, yeah.
um and then like again she keeps having visions of all the farmyard they don't have a farm but all the
Farmyard.
animals dying. The vision of the llama that she had in the cave, like there definitely is like a very intrinsic link there. Also, what the fuck was with that llama who was speaking? Like what is
What was with
occurring?
the bear? That bear
That's
came and
right.
destroyed the camp, and then we all were like, "Oh my god, his name is Kodiak. Kodiak's a bear. He's gonna ruin everything." And then he just got stabbed in the eye. I was like,
Yeah. That's what
"Okay."
I mean. There's that link there, but it's not quite fully there at the same time.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't know. I think Lottie has off Aquila because I don't know. I think the Wilderness wanted that because Aquila was getting Wilderness bad Wilderness vibes. I'm
Yeah,
not sure.
I don't know, because at this point, like, everything with Lottie is just, to me, is just, she's just unmedicated. Like, in the
Yeah.
beginning, it felt like the Wilderness, and now it's just become, she just needs her medication back.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's why I think it's passed on. Like, I think it's passed on from Lottie to Shauna, but Lottie's just now unstable.
I hope I hope the writers are good enough for that to be the case. I
Me
just
too.
don't have confidence in them at
No,
this point.
I agree with that. I agree with that. Yeah, it's just very wish-washy. Because again, like we keep getting these instances of like Ghost Jackie, but then again, like that's completely kind of fallen off too. So I'm like, what is actually really happening here? It doesn't feel like there is much rhyme or reason. It feels like potentially that kind of ghost and haunting of Jackie was meant to take a more foothold role and hasn't really. Because again, we saw it a lot in season 1 with the rabbits, and like that's not really been a through thread that's continued to follow on. So it's like,
And then why was the man with no eyes in Van and Shauna and Akila's little like cave gas dream?
Exactly, like who is that? What does that represent? Is that again like I do wonder that if potentially, and I'm trying to think what Lottie sees, and not really anything, but like you could argue that the man with no eyes is, again, it's linked to the other tie. We kind of understand that fundamentally, which again isn't something that's been fully explored, nor with her religion, nor with her like her grappling with her religion and the way that her like Nana dies and then that passing of the torch because whatever. But you could argue that that's the way that the Wilderness manifests itself into each of these people. So for Ty, it's the man with no eyes. For Shauna, it's this possession of Jackie. And then like potentially guilt, like maybe for Ty it's like this religious guilt manifestation, that's why it's tied to like her Nana kind of thing. Shauna is the guilt of that Jackie. Lottie is a confusing one because like is it just like general mental illness? I'm unsure. Like that feels like there could be those through threads, but again it's not clear if that's what they're going for, and I don't think that's what they're going for at all. But like you could put it that way, and I think there's a way to wrap that up and it makes sense, but I'm like, what is actually occurring here at all? Because they seem like the three strong like characters like that we've had like true like kind of visions or like otherness too, so they seem like they were the three, like the trifecta of the Wilderness. But why and what is the situation with that? Like I don't understand it at all.
Yeah, I guess we'll see what season 4 does. If it gets renewed. I don't think it's been renewed yet, so
yeah, but are they just saying that? Are they saying that to just be like, oh, it hasn't been renewed yet? Like, ha ha ha. I'm like,
I don't know. Because I think 2 and 3 got renewed like at the same time.
Yeah, but I mean, like, I guess that was like, yeah, I don't know. I'm curious to see, but again, like, I really want it to be renewed because it can't end like this. Like, it genuinely cannot end like this. Like, at least if it's like, no, we're only going to renew for a 4th season, they can actually like wrap things up, and like I think they could. But I'm like, you can't actually genuinely leave it like this. Like, that is genuinely fucked.
I think all shows that don't get renewed should have to release the plot line.
Yeah,
for
I
the rest
agree.
of the show.
You have to give
what's
me
going
like,
to happen.
Yeah, you need to do like an hour-long sit-down podcast of like, this is where we were going to take it, because I cannot sit and fester on that, because that will do me my head in. I'll have to like write it myself because I could not live. I couldn't live.
We couldn't live, laugh, love in those conditions.
I can't live, laugh, love in these conditions. And neither can the girlies.
No.
And Travis. But especially the girlies. Travis is just there, and I respect that a lot.
Yeah.
I would, if I was Travis, listen, I would not be there. I would have departed the earth very promptly after my brother deceased and they ate him. I just don't feel like I could have I don't have the resolve to stay around. I'm like, I don't want to be here anymore. Like I'm actually like so good. I'm actually like so good. I'm so good. I'm going to go walk into the ocean and drown. And if you want to eat me, so be it. But like I'm done. I'm done.
So fair.
No thanks. No thanks, girlies. No thanks.
Well, if you watched season 3, let us know your thoughts. We'd love to hear them. Do you agree with us? Do you disagree with us? What's the vibes, friends? Share all of your thoughts.
Yeah.
And we'll see ya in a couple weeks with something else.
That's how it works. That is how it works.
Yay!
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks so much for listening. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe so you never miss a new episode. To stay connected with us, then follow us on social media, which are linked in the description. I've been Emily.
And I've been Scar.
Tune in next time for the best cottagecore podcast for the cottage whores.